I'd like to start out by thanking everybody here for their patience this evening and throughout this whole process. I know it's been long, and a lot of you have sat through a lot of applications and hearings tonight, so I want to thank you for that. I just want to, let me just go through this here. We're here for old business for consideration and possible action, MSW Associates LLC, application for special exception to allow a transfer station and volume reduction plant in the IG-80 zone, 16 Plum Trees Road. Lot number L13144, special exception number 664. Public hearing closed on January 30th, 08. 65 days will be up on April 3rd, which is tomorrow. We've been given by staff who's done a great job on this, a lot of time and effort into this, and I just want to thank them also for what they've done. We have in front of us, Commission members, a draft resolution of denial for a petition for special exception and application for site plan approval. Now, we received this about a week or so ago, and I just want to make sure that we've all had a chance to take a look at it and we're comfortable with what it says. Gentlemen, okay.
Yes, we've read it, I made a couple of comments,
Okay.
which I think Sarah's going to respond to.
What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to ask Sharon Felicio from the planning staff to come up, and she has a few things she wants to talk about with regards to what's in this resolution. Sharon?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
what is
Rivers.
that? I'd just like to verify for the record that everybody that's going to be voting on this is qualified.
Yes, everyone who's sitting here this evening is qualified. They either listen to tapes or they've been present at the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Sharon?
Thank you. Before we get into the substance of the discussion, I did want to just go through and as well, we had an opportunity to look at it again after putting it down for a couple of days and found some typographical errors. So I'd like to just walk through the 5 of those, page by page, tell you what they are, and then go back to the beginning. So, sure. Okay, on page 4. Number 15, this is on the list of staff reports for Jim Stork. The first date, it says dated October 10, 2007, that should be deleted. That's just for repeat. The date of that letter is January 15, 2008. That's you just read that. On page 9, in the first big paragraph, around the middle of the page, 4th line up from the bottom, it says the Planning Commission respectively disagrees. Should say respectfully disagrees. That's just a word change. On page 12, also in the bottom of the 2nd paragraph, 3rd line up, again, it says the word respectively, this should say respectfully. And in the last paragraph, 7 lines, about the middle of the sentence, the Planning Commission respectfully disagrees. And then one last one on page 15. In the first bulleted item, middle of the page, the interior roadway is almost entirely ridden by retaining walls, not walls. Yeah, yes. Actually, spell check, didn't notice the word. It's a grammatical.
5 of them on 21,
And again, that is, those were the typo paragraphs. And then we can go back to the beginning. Again, it's pretty straightforward. You've had it since the end of last week. Had the opportunity to take a look at it. We tried, obviously, to incorporate everything. That's why it's lengthy. Kept all the, we didn't get crazy with the fonts. We kept everything straight from the same fonts. The whereas section sets up the application, dates, all the record, what's included in the record. Again, that goes to almost 7 pages long. And then the first, now therefore be it resolved. Again, we need to find, it's an application, a petition for special exception use and the site plan approval. So we've laid it out in this draft form, to talk about whether or not the commission felt the petition met the requirements of 10C4 in the zoning regs, which are required for approval of a special exception use. Number two, I think we talked through that as well. Let me just go through this quickly. Number two talks about the things we discussed at the work session, which were straight zoning compliance issues. Number three has to do with the 1D3 section and the has to do with the Lebanon Corporation Council. Item 4 has to do with information that was new as a result of the revised site plans and information that was submitted on or about close of the hearing date. And then the hearing was closed and we can't resolve those issues with the applicant. So that's how it's set up. That's how the resolution is set up. So what I'd like to do is just go through them one by one. We can talk about them again in more detail if there's anything you want to add. Number one, the proposed use fails to meet the requirements of approval of 10C4 of the City of Danbury zoning regulations. Again, there's a quotation, what needs to be met. There's the statement of the requirement of submission of a site plan along with the condition special exception. We talked about the zoning in the area. That there's an acknowledgement that by the commission that the application was submitted after the close of the hearing of the amendments that had been proposed, that were proposed by the city before they were approved and before they became effective. So the regulations in effect at the time the application was submitted. In 10C4A1 is a discussion about noise. Again, based on your comments at the work session, based on our understanding of the record, we've drafted this language for you. And if you have anybody has any comments, again, related to anything in the noise section, we can talk about that.
You're asking for that comment now?
Yeah, I think we should go through them again.
Okay.
You need to act tonight.
Okay.
We're going to have to, if there's any changes to this draft.
No, I just would like the paragraph, perhaps in the second paragraph, to indicate that in line with the commission notes that the information given by the representatives of the applicants did not indicate at what times they measured the background noise of this neighborhood. And it seemed, it was pointed out by the neighbors and observed by the commission that obviously the noise, background noise level may vary considerably, especially in the early morning hours when this facility opens. It might be a lot quieter than the background noise that's indicated.
Okay, so again, you want to propose language in a sentence between.
There was no evidence as to the.
What page do you want?
He's on page 9.
On page 2. Okay.
That says documentation and testimony provided by representatives of the applicant noted that in March 2007, noise measurements taken around the perimeter of the proposed facility resulted in a measurement of 56 to 58 dBA at the City of Danbury Housing Authority complex. That's directly out of their
Yeah, what I wanted to say was that there was no indication as to the times of the day or night that there was background noise was measured. And
Okay.
it may be that the noise generated by the facility, for example, in the early morning hours, would be considerably higher than what they noted.
Okay, we're gonna need to work out the language tonight, here, now, and add it as a sentence, so,
Well,
I had said in between, after the word complex, there was no, again, proposal, like the proposal, there was no indication in the record regarding the time at which
This measurement is taken, as it's on this measurement was
this
Was-
measurement
taken, it was
Yeah.
wired, it was read, or...
right,
was recorded. I mean, he recorded it with the sound.
right.
So,
Are you specifically the time of day, right?
At the time of day,
the
right?
time of day. There was no indication in the record regarding the time of day at which
This
this
measurement was
measurement was
recorded.
recorded.
That'll work.
Okay, that's the sentence
Right,
that goes
exactly.
between, after the word complex, before, this may be considered background.
And this means that the early morning operations could be much, there could be a greater difference between what they generate and the background noise than it could be at other times.
Turn. Mr. U.S. please.
Might suggest a little alternative approach to that over the surface. The following sentence says, this may be considered the background noise level. Perhaps just changing that sentence to indicate that since the time of day that measurements were taken were not established, this can't necessarily be considered background noise in the quiet early morning hours of the day.
We can do that. That is recorded, we'll have to, we'll play it back unless you want to rephrase it. We'll just take it, so, well, after the word complex, we'll add your sentence and delete this may be considered background. We'll just take it verbatim.
I think that captures it, yeah, I think
Okay,
that captures it.
that's
Let's read
fine.
it again.
Okay, that's fine.
It was Joel's language. You want to recite it again?
Duplicate that?
Yes.
Let me give you a gesture. In lieu of the last sentence of the paragraph, since the time of day that veterinary studies were taken is not established, this cannot be necessarily considered the background noise at early times in the day.
Right.
We consider the background noise level at certain times.
Certain times of the day.
Certain, et cetera.
Right.
Certain,
Feel right?
Yeah, want me to say?
No.
Yeah. No, I just, and they did indicate, in the early morning is what concerns me the most, but you might in that sentence indicate that there was also some late work.
That's why I said certain times of the day,
Okay.
instead of just saying early morning, so that kind of leaves it open for other times of the day besides just
During the early morning or the extended, why don't you say during the early morning or the extended hours of operation that they mentioned?
various times of the day.
Gotta work the language out.
So being more
Very well
broad.
so.
Being more broad is being more inclusive.
Yeah, I think by saying various times of the day.
Yeah, I think you're
I mean, I
right.
think that leaves it
At
kind of
certain times
open
of the
for,
day.
yeah, it kind of leaves it open to it's going to be early,
What do you-
it could be evening.
Since the time of the day of
hours.
the studies
This
is not established.
The studies are taken, this is not established, this is not necessarily considered the background.
Noise at certain times of
For
the day.
variance, which we're going.
For various
Various
times.
times of the day.
Okay, good, that's fine.
Okay? Okay. And then, again, the discussion relative to what the hours are now is in later.
I know, later on.
Okay. Anybody else on the list? Okay, on page 10, in your order.
Mr. Esther,
Comment for
yeah,
underwriter. In paragraph 4, the second sentence of that paragraph, currently reads, in fact, the applicant's air system expert testified that transfer trailers will likely emit odors due to decomposing municipal solid waste, especially when air temperatures exceed 90 degrees. My recollection of testimony, because I'm posed the question, in the summertime, perhaps I did say over 90 degrees, but that's fine to leave that limiter in there. But during that line of questioning, I specifically asked what the distance of the transfer trailers were from the property line, which is approximately 75 feet, give or take, and the distance to the curb line and the public housing complex, which was approximately 130 feet, give or take, and whether or not the odors would emit to the 130 feet away. There was some testimony by applicants' counsel about when they were going one way in Connecticut, but anybody who was like leaves in the state knows that that is not the case. So I just wanted to clarify that question that his testimonies would emit odor beyond what is the distance to a property line. And by inserting the words after will likely emit odors beyond the project property lines, which specifically goes back to the requirement that it will not emit odor, which will create nuisance having detrimental effects on adjacent properties, and that the public housing is certainly within the distance that those odors would reach. So if you could just add those few words.
I think if you add beyond the property line after the emit odors, it's almost like you have to create a whole new sentence after, because it really doesn't flow the way it's written here. So you may have to say, in fact, the applicant's air system expert testified that transfer trailers sort of likely emit odors. You're saying beyond
Beyond the property line.
and you would say this would be due to decomposing municipal solid waste, especially when, so you would have to almost create another sentence. I know, that's just the teacher part.
Let me read my whole sentence as I would put it in, and you can pick it apart there. In fact, the applicant's air system expert testified that transfer trailer storage will likely emit odors beyond the project property lines due to decomposing municipal solid waste, especially when air temperatures exceed 90 degrees.
I think that's, I'm a lawyer, I just would like sentences like that.
That'll work.
Add something, yeah, no, add something, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so
Beyond the project property line. After the word
after the word odors, yeah.
Okay.
I'll yield that.
Next page on section 10, on page 11, the section 10C4A2 has to do with the design. The planning commission has to find that the use is designed in a manner that's compatible with the character of the neighborhood, and the discussion is based on what we pulled from the record. Your disagreement with that it was not designed in a manner that was compatible with the neighborhood. Any comment on this?
I don't know if it would be an appropriate inclusion in the denial. I was just going to throw it out for the truth of God. Something that's particularly disturbing to me was not the applicant, but the applicant's counsel recited a number of land uses in the area as being noxious uses. And one of those uses that he cited was the public housing project. It just lends to me that somewhere in this application there was not an understanding by the applicant of what the character of the neighborhood is, because public housing is about the furthest thing I can think of, that's being an obnoxious use of land. I mean, it's a great use of land, especially in the zone it's already meant for. I just throw it out food for what.
I don't know, I mean, I wasn't actually here after that, I heard the tape on it. I myself personally, I didn't really infer anything like that from his comments.
Oh,
I mean, you were here in the room, and, you know, yeah, that's your opinion. I mean, I think what we have in here is, I think this is pretty strong language in here, based on what the record is. So, I appreciate your comments.
That's fine.
I don't know how you feel.
No, I don't think it's necessary
But I think
to build this little.
I think I would yield that one. To
Yeah, with all due respect, if I could just make a comment that when we drafted this, all of us, we really looked hard at trying to see what substantial evidence is in the record to support
Yeah, I'm
the
saying it's
position.
an
So
inference.
whether there were some inferences one way or another, that being aside, we noted what the adjacent land uses were.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, following down in the B, 10C483 is the finding, the commission has to find that the proposed use will not create conditions adversely affecting traffic safety or cause undue traffic congestion. I took them one by one. Issue of traffic safety, again, function of volumes based on the land use, roadway geometry, distribution, valuation of the accident rates, driver habits. We went through all of that in order to make the finding. On the bottom of page 12, we again pulled out the site distance issue. And acknowledging our own traffic engineer's comment relative to that. But again, this is what we pulled from the record.
I think also the fact that you put in the comments related to the possibility of traffic going towards Bethel, and the idea that, well, it's not really going to go towards Bethel, but it may go towards Bethel. I think that wouldn't be needed to be in the
I think staff did a terrific job of analyzing and consolidating the testimony on traffic.
No, I don't have anything.
On behalf of staff. Okay, now on traffic congestion, I don't know if you have anything on that there, on page 14. Again, we'll just keep moving. At 10C4A4 on page 15, some general comments relative to jeopardizing public health and safety. Some of the things have to do with traffic, are referenced back in the previous section, and then there's some design-related issues that, again, were discussed on the record in various staff reports from ourselves, from the traffic engineer, from the fire marshal, and in the discussion on the record. Number 2, it says the site plan fails to comply with the City of Danbury zoning regulations. We go to each section on page 15 on the bottom. And A has to do with the landscaping. We walked through the definitions that come right from the zoning regulations. And again, this was discussed in our last staff memo to you, relative to landscaping being on someone else's property, albeit owned by the same partner, and MSW Associates. It's still not in the front yard, by zoning. In B, section 8A, erosion sedimentation controls, has to do with the grading, the ability to obtain easements, and the inability, or the potential inability, to obtain an erosion sedimentation control permit for failure to comply with that one standard relative to grading of the property line. And again, that is a function of the plan having been revised and resubmitted on the 29th, which was a different plan, which pushed the ball back for a reason, right? And the applicant was trying, we acknowledge that, they were trying to meet and address the comments of the traffic engineer and the fire marshal, but in doing so, some of the issues, right, some of the details of the plan, right.
So either way, whether they made the change or not, one would.
Right, right. Okay, and I'm on page 17, section 8B1B1A, standards for motor vehicle access design, street improvements, and 10D, 4C, site plan requirements, construction details. And a lot of this has to do with the 12-foot wide turning lane not being designed as is required in zoning regulations. And that's basically failure to comply. The 12-foot wide, yeah, the 12-foot wide lane. The details are required to be submitted. It's in the zoning regulations in both of those sections. So failure, the planning commission cannot ensure that public safety is, that they number one, can be built as proposed, and it can ensure public safety. On page 18, number 3, application fails to comply with 1D3. That's pretty straightforward, and we talked about that, whether or not allowing for the potential of having a transfer station if or impedes another city ordinance or regulation.
This is directed right out of council's.
Pretty much. And again, we're not going to address the issue. We acknowledge we will not address the issue of constitutional. That's not our purview or our own decisions. And finally, the completeness of the application. Again, relative to 118, relative to grading. And again, these are issues that came up as a result of submission of the operations, statement of operations, or whatever they call it. And just questions that we can't even talk about. And, you know, they would have been resolved, but record's closed. Record was closed on the 3rd. On-site vehicle storage and maintenance. For the first time, there was a discussion relative to the use of mulch on top of the transfer trailers that were going to be stored in the back of the site. That brings up a whole host of other issues, where they're getting it, where they're storing it, how they're getting it on top of the trailers, are they inside the building, outside the building, all kinds of things. We just can't resolve those. There was some indication of some extended hours of operation, which I didn't make more. We did not think, staff didn't think that it was fully addressed in the record beyond what was evaluated as 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. There was a clear acknowledgement that things would be going on before then and after that, before 6 a.m. And again, there was some more discussion about how long, or we weren't sure how long the transfer trailers were going to be stored on the site in the back corner, so how long that meant. And finally, the site plan revisions that were submitted on the 29th modified the site plan on the adjacent property, and that also requires some evaluation of whether or not they still comply. They may not. We don't know. It was partially shown. It is the wall projects into an area that was used for traffic circulation on the Putnam Automotive site. So how is that working? Again, things we can't discuss with the applicant. And then finally, the last be a further result with on page 21. There is an apparent inconsistency with the site plan that was approved in the EIC permit 737. By the EIC last earlier this year. And there was a specific condition in that permit that specified it was tied to that site development plan. And if there was any changes to that site development plan, they had to go back to the commission, not an administrative review, back to the EIC for review and approval. So it's not a reason for denial, it's not listed here as a reason for denial, it's just kind of an FYI to the applicant, like the plans don't match now. And again, we acknowledge that staff, so something would have to be done. So that is where we are.
Commission members, any questions for Steve or Mr.
Comment?
Mr.
Comment?
Yes.
Just giving this pretty close reading, very close reading, over the last few days. And it seems to me staff has put together a good clarification of what the testimony was, and thoughts that we expressed throughout the hearings and special meeting for that purpose. So I would like to just take this to motion to issue a resolution of denial for the application as per the draft submitted and under review at this time with the amendments so noted for typographical areas and additions to the noise and odor considerations.
Is that a motion, Ron?
That was my motion.
Entertain a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Manuel, any discussion? I mean, I would just like to say that, having chaired this for a extended period of time, I just appreciate all the appropriate due diligence that, and the extensive time and long hours that was put in by our staff, commission members, and everyone, even the applicant that were involved in this
And the
process.
opponents, the patients of the opponents.
And that was going to be my last comment, and those folks in the community that have sat through lots of long hours of the meetings, we appreciate your due diligence on this as well. Any other discussion on this? Ellen, any comments?
I do want to say,
I do want to say, I thought it was very comprehensive and inclusive of, all the important issues and discussion that was raised, and I want to thank you also.
Any-
For clarity, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Cooper.
a vote, a yes vote is a
Yes.
vote for a deny. For the resolution.
Motion is for denial.
Okay, we have a motion for denial on the table. All those in favor of denial,
Aye.
please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion for denial passes 4-0. Okay, thank you, everybody. Mr. Finaldi, wherever you are, please bear it.